We'll now talk about maintenance processing. So we talked about technical structures, preventive maintenance. Now we're going to talk about maintenance processing. This includes notifications, work orders, and time entry, and its relationship with inventory and finance. So here we go, maintenance processing. There's a few T codes that are missing here because they're under inventory. And some of them will actually T codes we don't even deal with. So yeah, here's maintenance. And there's a few T codes that are not included here, which would be financing transaction codes because that's not part of our business process. But the Mississauga office, we will look after that, or the IS department will look after that. So let's go back to config here. So once again, we go plant maintenance. Now we're doing maintenance and service processing. There's quite a few tabs here, and I'll show you which ones you look after. We first start with basic settings. In basic settings, the first thing we want to care about here is define planner groups. It's right here. You do that as part of your config for a new plant. You just put the planner group for the plant, and then it just gives it as an option during the drop down. So that's what you do here. It's very simple. You're just creating master data. That's done. Then you don't worry about print control here. You guys are not using Delta printing. Next thing you do look after is general order settlement. This is done along with the FI department. So you should not go and change things around here on your own. You should definitely talk to somebody in finance, say, hey, we're going to make these changes, or do you recommend we make these changes? Okay, so first thing we'll do is maintain settlement profiles. It's already been created. Z40A is for maintenance. It puts in allocation structure Z3, which we're going to talk about in a second, and it defaults to cost center. It does the settlement percentage, equivalent numbers, and here's all this data. All this is to be discussed with finance department. So that's that. Next item, it's allocation structure, which deals with the Z3 we just spoke about. Here's Z3. You go to the source, cost element. And the way this is set up is that if you look at this, there's different value categories. So you have internal labor, materials, external contractors, and others. So now others is not included in your work order costing tab. You won't see that. You won't realize that you're actually charging stuff against others. You only see these three. So what happens, you define internal labor, go to settlement, and then here you'll see the GL accounts that come with it. So here you put the GL account you want to default in. There's a series of GL accounts. You define these GL accounts. So and you define these GL accounts with the finance department. They'll give you the value. Say GL account 654100. The only other thing you have to remember from here is define the number ranges for settlement documents. Just like all number ranges, you do the NR object and then the category, and then you define the category to the appropriate number range. So that's how that works. That's done. Now we're going to talk about maintaining the value categories. PM. So here's this right here comes from your work order. So let's go look at a work order just so we know what we're talking about. Go here. Here's a work order. Let's go look at it. Go to the costing tab. Here's your cost. There's no cost yet. Let's go look at one that has costs. Oh. This one has some costs in there. There we go. So if we look at the cost here, you have internal labor and materials. If we were to charge anything to external services, it would be up here too, and also to others. So we haven't defined others though. And this comes from config here. So you create this. So I could create a new one. Call it IBM Consultants. And then you give it whatever you want to call it. IBM SAP Help. Then you press, is it a cost or revenue? Is always a cost for plant maintenance because that's what we do. We don't make money off that. And then you define it to a value category. You define it to a cost element. So here you take your each one of these value categories and you assign it to a cost element. This is a GL account really. A cost element and GL account are the same thing. So you define it there. Same thing with materials. Same thing with internal labor. So if you notice internal labor, we have a little funny, little something different going on here. You'll notice it goes from this cost element to this cost element. The costs are being transferred from one GL account to another. That only happens for internal labor because in the end, the internal labor does not go against the budget of the maintenance department because that's overhead for the whole plant, the labor costs. Then we check consistency. Here we're just looking at all the GL accounts you have. Which ones are actually being charged, which are not. So that's how that works. And that finishes this section off. And that finishes basic settings off. Now we're going to go talk about notifications. That's the next thing. Here we got overview of notification type. And I'll explain some things in notifications, and then I'll skip some of them in work orders because they're identical. So, screen areas for notification. First, look for your notification type. Let's go look for notification types. There we are. Oh, missed it. N1. Area. Here's a bunch of fields. So, they all hold different information. All these folders here. So, you have to go through it, and what I recommend is that you take one like N1, and then if you create a new one, you go through N1 and just copy all the values that's in each folder. Alright. Notification creation. Here you define notification types. Let's say we're going to create a new notification type. We will create it right here. Right, so N1, N2, N3, there they are. Screen template, we're not going to use that. Yes. Define long text, control. Just copy the ones from the other notification types. Field selection, this is the same for everything, just like we did field selection for equipment and function locations. You come in here and select the field selection, so even has the icons included here as you see. What do they do? Are they inputted, they're not there? We could hide this, we can make this required, etc. So that's how that works. Number ranges, you already know about number ranges. Start values. So here's the IW21. We could say it always brings in N1. We could make it always default to N1, and it makes your users have one less click. We're not going to do that, but you could do that. Here's all the T codes, and that's all the start values you could put. So if you believe that you're only going to use N1 from now on, put N1 right here. That's where you put it. We're not using this one. Not using this one either. So here you define a notification types to order types. So let's go look at ours, N1, N2, N3. Let's go find them. There they are. So not assigned to any notification type. So you could, work order types. You could define them right here. You could put like ZCM1, ZMG1, etc. You don't need to worry about this one either. It's not set up for you guys. Maintenance catalogs. You could create catalogs here, and the way catalogs work are that, let's say you have a certain object type, you're saying this object type is going to have this type of catalog. So one object type you could have is cars, right? So if you have a bunch of equipment that's tagged to the technical object type cars, you could create a catalog for that and say, okay, anything that belongs to this, any equipment, will get a certain catalog saying, for cars, the only things that could go down are broken engine, flat tire, broken air conditioner, etc. And you define all the problems, and then once you create that catalog, when you create a notification, you could have a drop-down menu that says, okay, what is wrong with this car? Rather than typing in free text like you do now, you could select from a catalog saying, oh, what's wrong with it now is a flat tire, and you select it. So as an example how catalogs work. So let's go look at one catalog just to show you. So here we're going to go repair codes. Here's all the repair codes. Major repairs, repairs. So you could do all this. You could define repairs, you could define what broke, activities, etc. This is not truly being utilized right now at Maple Leaf. The option is there, but it's not being enforced from a business process side, so that's something to keep in mind. You do a lot of things here. You could define the catalog profiles, change the catalogs. This is all with the catalogs there. So I'll show you a catalog just so you're aware. Let's go look at a catalog. W21 N1. This is the corrective stuff. 2507. Okay, so there we go. Yeah. And here we go, fault identification. These are catalogs. When you do this here, this right here is a catalog. You define this somewhere. This is, as you saw, is a Maple Leaf DMG default codes. So that would come from your catalogs that we just looked at. So that is that. Partners you're not using. So partners, basically, if you create a notification, somebody gets notified about it. It could be via email or via SAP email, or it could be that they have to sign off on the notification, etc. So you have many different options there, but you're not utilizing this right now. None of this here you're using either. So, but you could do some pretty fancy stuff here. Just priorities you could look at. So that priority there comes from basic settings above. Right here, basic settings. So so now we're done with notifications. Work orders. You first create an work order type. You don't use this here. You then assign the order type to maintenance plants. So create it here, assign it to the order to the maintenance plants. There's a document that exists that makes these steps that takes you through these steps one by one. So I won't get into great detail in this video. But all that you need to do to create an order type is in that step-by-step document. Control keys are defined here, etc. You don't use PRTs, that's good. You don't need to worry about print control. It's already defined for you. If you need to change anything with the printer, the printers printouts are coming out. Those are SAP scripts. You need to work with an ABAP resource to go look at the code behind those SAP scripts. So that's a heads up for that, for anything for printers. I mean for printouts. This deals with the object info box that we talked about. We already discussed that in equipment video. Here's the field selections for the order types. Has already been discussed. And general data, default values. assignment categories, user statuses, that's important. You define that at the basic setting level. So that is all done. This right here deals with time entry. So basically IW41, 42, 44, 48, 49 T codes, or 48, no 49. And here you set up those T codes. You could set up the default values that come in here by going one of these config menus here. That I would actually recommend that you do that. You don't need mobile asset management. You're not using that. You're not using any of this here. So, since this is already defined in a different section, and we don't need to refine this, it's just a very quick overview of it. So now we're going to look at basic settings. So here you define the user statuses for everybody. So you go in here and you create a code. So we could call it whatever we want. We want to call it Vlad or ZE, OR. This is for orders or notifications. So we click on the order one, and then you create all these statuses here. So like environment, ESA. So anytime you want to create something new, you go in here, and yeah, just create a new one like Vlad. You know, there you go. It's created. Maybe you can make it initial if you want. Lower it by 5. It's up to you. So that's how that works. I'm not going to save this. You don't need to worry about currency. You're not even using that. This is auth objects. You're not using that either. You're not using permits. Here, this is brand new, so you guys are going to start using this measurement points counter and measurement documents. So something to keep in mind. So I'll explain it over here. So this one you don't need. This basically, unless you want to do transfer of counter. So you have to turn this on. Basically, the way it works is you create a counter and you assign it to an equipment. Once you assign it to equipment, let's say you have a odometer for a car, and the engine has also an equipment record. So the equipment record in this case is the car, and now you wish to use the exact same counter, which is the odometer, to create some preventive maintenance for the engine. So you wish to transfer the readings for the odometer for the car to the for the counter of the engine. So you have to go in here and turn that on. Here's the measurement point categories. We have counter, measurement points, general. You always use counter, that's what we're using. Just showing you where that is. So there you go, measurement points, total period, etc. There you go. Next, create number ranges for measurement points. We already talked about that. Number ranges like everything else. Measurement point, number ranges for measurement documents. Define the field selection. You go in here, find the field selection for the measurement points and the measurement documents. So, influencing. And here's the list edits, and that is all. That's all that's included in this. That finalizes all the videos for config.